on the big story. Recently, world leaders gathered in London to discuss the future of Afghanistan.
Security in Afghanistan needs a broader, more comprehensive approach towards security in the region and the causes that give rise to insecurity.
Inside the conference, they want to talk to the Taliban. They also want to send more troops and keep them there indefinitely. But there are those who disagree.
We don't want any more troops sent to Afghanistan. On the contrary, we want all troops withdrawn from Afghanistan. That is the only way to get peace for that country and peace for that region.
I'm here today to protest against the reconciliation of Taliban with the Afghan government. We need to first take the views and opinions of the Afghan people before making such a rash decision.
I think we're again hearing about an occupation that may last for years and years to come.
The invasion of Afghanistan was sold to the public as a direct response to the New York attacks of September the 11th. It seems simple enough: capture Osama bin Laden, eradicate Al-Qaeda and its Taliban supporters, and make the world a safer, more secure place. We went to the offices of the Daily Telegraph, a firm supporter of the British mission in Afghanistan, to speak with the paper's security correspondent Duncan Gardam. We've been in Afghanistan since 2001. Are we safer?
In some ways, the world is a more dangerous place for being in Afghanistan, that's true. But there's a balance to be had there, I think, in some respects, insofar as denying Al-Qaeda safe spaces in which to operate has been one of the main aims of the war in Afghanistan. But it certainly has upset people across the Muslim world, and in that sense it has stirred up a sense of grievance, certainly. But I think some people, certainly elements of the military, would argue that it's also denied them a certain space to operate in. So it's a kind of two-handed thing in that sense.
Ask the 700 people injured and the 56 killed in the 7/7 attack on London's transport system, or those caught up in the attempted Glasgow airport bombings, and they'd probably tell you that they feel anything but safe and secure. This new level of insecurity has spread to places like Spain, when Madrid's central train station came under attack. And what about places like Afghanistan's neighbour, Pakistan, whose population has had to deal with the spillover from the so-called war on terror? Even the most mundane aspects of British life have been touched. Travel, for example, will never be the same after the recent introduction of full-body scanners at the UK's major airports. Now you still feeling safe? And what about Al-Qaeda? Have they been contained? Well, frankly, no. Instead, the group blamed for the September the 11th attack is now more fragmented and elusive than ever. Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda's figurehead, has so far managed to evade capture and continues to taunt the West with frequent reminders that he's very much alive. So, just what is Britain's role there? The majority of Britain's estimated 9,500 forces in Afghanistan are situated in Helmand province in the southwest of the country. It is also an area with a sizable Taliban contingent. Fighting between NATO and Taliban forces is fierce. And despite a presence in the country and in Helmand for 9 years, the region still remains the world's largest producer of opium. Most British troops who have lost their lives in Afghanistan have so in Helmand. It's memorials like these that are the final resting places for British soldiers killed in past conflicts. And as the death toll in Afghanistan rises above the 250 mark, what is sobering is that there'll be many more of these places. As yet, there's no burial spot or memorial specifically for Britain's Afghan casualties. Many are arguing that it's about time there was one. Still, rising death tolls are not just a matter of concern for British soldiers. Since the start of the NATO presence in Afghanistan, thousands of Afghan civilians have been killed, with the UN reporting a rise of 10% on 2008 figures. Although you probably haven't read it in the papers, 10 civilians, including 8 teenagers, were recently shot dead by ISAF forces in Kunar. There's a simple inscription over here, right there. It says, "Simple service, simply given to his own kind in their common need." And whilst the men and the women who lay here may have done just that for Britain in its time of need during World War I and II, what might be poignant and what might actually be very distressing is those in Afghanistan might not need to be there. Those who have died may not need it to have died. And that can be the most sad thing of all. The war's mounting death toll has caused a drop in support for the war. The results of a British poll taken at the end of 2009 indicated the following. Only 54% of those polled felt they had a good understanding of the purpose of Britain's mission in Afghanistan, while 63% felt all British forces should be withdrawn from Afghanistan as quickly as possible. A further 64% felt the war in Afghanistan is unwinnable, and 52% felt the levels of corruption involved in the recent presidential election show the war in Afghanistan is not worth fighting for. Dr. Michael Williams is a lecturer in international relations at Royal Holloway University in London. Surely public opinion has now moved away from Afghanistan being, what, the good war?
Well, in Afghanistan, certainly the security situation has been mixed over the last few years. And you've got a situation in 2009 where the casualties of international forces exceeded those in Iraq, which certainly caught headlines. And so in the UK, you've had a real decrease in public opinion supporting the war, and in the US as well. It's not really seen as the good war as such, or if it is the good war, they don't really want to be fighting it anymore. Democratic populations tend to tire of conflicts, especially if it's not seen as a dire necessity. So it's not like World War II where the threat was overwhelming. This is something that's seen as perhaps being a secondary security concern. Although the governments might not think so, the populations are becoming less and less likely to support a long-term engagement.
So is this the government's fault that they haven't actually presented a case to the population adequately?
I would say that the population in the United Kingdom in particular probably wasn't given the information up front about the type of mission they were engaging in, how difficult it would be, and the level of commitment required. It's not clear whether it's because the government, quite frankly, didn't understand what it was getting itself into, or because they were trying to make it seem a bit easier and were hoping it would be a bit easier in order to get people to go along with it. In the United States, it's been relatively more matter of fact in terms of the level of commitment required, the level of the threat, and sort of what the population's doing.